If you wake up some mornings feeling as if your joints have been wrapped in sandpaper, if turning a key or tying a shoelace sends a flare of pain through a knuckle you used to take for granted, you are not alone. And the answer may be simpler than you think. Long before surgery or long-term medication becomes the only option many people accept, the body sends signals every day through stiffness, swelling, and fatigue. Those signals are often a conversation between your immune system and the substances you put on your plate. Today, I will begin by explaining what that conversation sounds like, why certain common foods fan the embers of joint inflammation, and why changing what you eat can be the most immediate, practical step toward easing pain and regaining movement. Let me tell you about Mary. She is 63, retired from a decades-long career of standing and bookkeeping, and she came to my clinic convinced that the damage in her knees was irreversible. She had tried creams, pills, and even an injection that gave only temporary relief. What she did not expect was that the real breakthrough came when we examined the ordinary habits she had trusted: her mid-afternoon soda, the sweet bakery treat after dinner, and the convenient frozen dinners that filled her freezer. Within weeks of modest dietary changes, she reported less morning swelling and the first comfortable night's sleep she had in years. That is not a miracle. It is biology, and it is predictable biology when you understand how food and inflammation interact. Inflammation is not a mystery force. It is the body's natural reaction to injury or infection. The problem for many people with chronic joint pain is that this reaction becomes continuous, a low-level state of alert that corrodes cartilage, sensitizes nerves, and leaves joints perpetually tender. Importantly, what we eat can either fuel that smoldering inflammation or help extinguish it. Scientific and clinical reviews show that diets high in processed sugars, refined carbohydrates, and ultra-processed foods are linked to higher markers of systemic inflammation, while whole food, Mediterranean-style eating patterns are associated with lower inflammatory markers and better joint outcomes. One of the clearest, most actionable truths I share with patients is this: added sugars and refined sweet foods are not benign. They do more than add empty calories. They provoke biochemical pathways that increase inflammatory signaling molecules, cytokines, and accelerate glycation reactions that stiffen connective tissue. Over time, repeated spikes of blood sugar and repeated exposure to processed sugars are associated with higher levels of circulating inflammatory proteins and an increased sense of joint stiffness and pain. This is not conjecture. Organizations that specialize in arthritis care explicitly point to added sugar as a dietary factor that can worsen symptoms and recommend reducing intake of sugar-sweetened beverages, sweets, and hidden sugars in processed foods. Equally important, but often debated and therefore worth careful explanation, is the role of dietary fats, particularly the balance between omega-6 and omega-3 polyunsaturated fatty acids. Many refined vegetable oils that dominate modern kitchens, corn, sunflower, safflower, soybean oil, are high in omega-6 fats. When dietary omega-6 substantially outnumbers omega-3 intake, the body is tipped into producing a higher proportion of lipid mediators that favor inflammation. Several reviews and observational studies link a high omega-6 to omega-3 ratio, with greater prevalence of chronic inflammatory conditions and more severe pain and functional limitation in degenerative joint disease. That said, the literature is nuanced. Other investigators emphasize that omega-6 fats are not a single monolithic threat and that overall dietary patterns matter. Replacing saturated fat with polyunsaturated fat has benefits in many settings. The practical takeaway for patients is to favor sources of omega-3, oily fish, flax, walnuts, and choose cooking fats that are stable and familiar in Mediterranean and anti-inflammatory diets, extra virgin olive oil, avocado oil, while avoiding excessive reliance on highly refined seed oils in heavily processed foods. Processed meats, ultra-processed ready meals, and foods rich in preservatives and additives represent a third category I caution against. These items are often dense with sodium, nitrites, unstable fats, and ingredients that provoke both metabolic stress and inflammatory signaling. Large clinical centers and public-facing health organizations consistently advise people with joint disease to limit processed and fast foods as part of a comprehensive approach to symptom control. When processed foods are replaced by whole foods, vegetables, legumes, whole grains in moderation, fresh lean proteins, the evidence shows meaningful reductions in subjective pain and in objective markers of inflammation for many patients. Finally, it is essential to understand that the link between diet and joint health is not purely local to the joint. The gut microbiome, the trillions of bacteria, viruses, and fungi that live in the digestive tract, plays a central role in calibrating the immune system. Emerging studies show that certain patterns of gut bacteria and their metabolites can influence systemic inflammation and, in some cases, are associated with worse symptoms in osteoarthritis and rheumatoid arthritis. This gut-joint axis helps explain why foods that irritate the gut lining or disturb microbial balance can have downstream effects on joint pain. Conversely, foods that feed beneficial bacteria, fiber-rich vegetables, legumes, fermented foods, support immune regulation and may help reduce joint inflammation. This is an area of active research, but the clinical implication is straightforward. Improving gut health is a sensible and evidence-informed strategy when the goal is to lower inflammatory burden and reduce pain. In the next chapter, I will take you through the first of the 3 foods you should consider removing from your regular diet if you want to calm the fire in your joints. I will explain, in plain terms, the biochemical mechanisms involved, show practical food swaps that older adults can actually sustain, and offer a short, realistic plan to test the change and judge whether it helps your pain. For now, if anything I've just described resonates with your daily experience, if you find yourself delaying activities because your joints hurt or waking up stiff more days than not, take a moment to note the 3 things you ate most yesterday. When you are ready, we will begin with the most common and easily overlooked offender. Let's begin with the first and perhaps most deceptive food category when it comes to joint pain: sugar and refined carbohydrates. Most people think of sugar as an occasional indulgence, something that sweetens life but cannot possibly harm a joint. Yet biochemically, sugar acts like a spark in dry grass. It ignites inflammation that can linger for hours after consumption. Every spoonful of sugar triggers a rise in blood glucose, and with it, an increase in insulin, followed by oxidative stress that damages cells. Over time, this pattern produces what scientists call advanced glycation end products, or AGEs. These sticky compounds bind to proteins in your connective tissue, making them stiffer and less elastic. The result is that cartilage loses its spring, tendons lose their flexibility, and even small movements can feel tight or sore. When I explain this to patients, they often nod but then ask, "So, should I just avoid candy?" Unfortunately, the answer is much broader. Sugar hides in places where you would least expect it: in salad dressings, in flavored yogurts, in breakfast cereals labeled as whole grain. Even sauces and breads contain added sugars that can drive inflammation. Many older adults fall into the habit of having tea with sugar, a nightly dessert, or packaged snacks marketed as low-fat but loaded with sweeteners. Each of these contributes to the inflammatory load. The first step is awareness, reading labels, recognizing that syrup, maltose, or fructose are all forms of sugar, and the second step is gradual replacement. Replacing sugar doesn't mean living without pleasure. There are natural alternatives that help retrain your taste buds and reduce inflammation simultaneously. Cinnamon, for instance, not only adds flavor but has antioxidant properties that help regulate blood glucose. Fresh fruit, especially berries, offers natural sweetness alongside polyphenols that actively fight inflammation. When patients make these changes, the improvement is often noticeable within weeks. Less morning stiffness, less swelling around the fingers, fewer nights waking up due to joint throbs. It's as if the body finally starts to exhale after years of silent irritation. For those who find it difficult to quit sugar cold turkey, I recommend reducing it step by step. Start with beverages. Replace sugary drinks with water infused with lemon, cucumber, or a touch of mint. If you enjoy coffee or tea, gradually cut down the sugar until you can appreciate the natural flavor. Then address breakfast, where hidden sugars dominate. A simple shift from processed cereal to oatmeal topped with blueberries and chia seeds can reduce inflammatory triggers without sacrificing satisfaction. These are not diet fads. They are sustainable habits that change the chemistry of your bloodstream. Scientific studies show that reducing added sugar can lower systemic markers of inflammation, such as C-reactive protein, CRP, and interleukin-6. That means every meal free of added sugar is not just lighter in calories, it is actively helping your joints recover. Think of your body as a living network of repair. Each time you choose an apple over a pastry or a handful of nuts over a cookie, you are supporting that repair system, allowing the natural anti-inflammatory pathways to dominate. The difference accumulates quietly but powerfully. There is another layer to this story that deserves attention: the psychological side of sugar consumption. Many people, especially in their later decades, use sweet foods as comfort. They mark the end of a long day, or they fill the silence of an empty afternoon. But once they understand the true cost of that habit, not in pounds or calories, but in pain, they often find motivation to change. I always remind my patients that each decision at the table is an act of self-care. Replacing processed sugar is not a punishment. It's a gift you give your joints, your energy, your independence. Now, before we move to the next food culprit, I want to pause for a moment. If you're finding this information helpful, if you recognize yourself in these stories, take a second to subscribe to this channel. Here we dive deep into how the body really works, how to ease pain naturally, and how to regain the comfort and strength you deserve. Subscribing means you won't miss the next steps, the science-based tips that can transform your daily routine. Remember, knowledge is power, but only if you keep learning. The second group of foods we need to address is more subtle, because for decades people have been told they are healthy: refined vegetable oils. The labels say cholesterol-free, light, or heart-friendly, and yet the story beneath those words is complex. Most of the oils used in processed foods, corn oil, soybean oil, sunflower, safflower, undergo intense chemical refinement. They are extracted with heat and solvents, deodorized, and bleached to create the transparent liquid that fills so many bottles. This process strips away natural antioxidants and alters the balance of fats in a way that quietly fuels inflammation. To understand why, imagine the balance between two families of essential fats in your body, omega-6 and omega-3. Both are necessary, but the ratio matters. A few generations ago, humans consumed these in near equal amounts. Today, the average diet contains up to 20 times more omega-6 than omega-3, largely because of the omnipresence of refined oils in packaged foods, dressings, fried items, and even baked goods. Omega-6 fats, when present in excess, serve as raw material for compounds called prostaglandins and leukotrienes, chemical messengers that amplify pain and inflammation. Omega-3 fats, found in fish, walnuts, and flax seeds, generate the opposite: molecules that calm inflammation and promote healing. When one side dominates, your joints feel the difference. I often illustrate this with a simple analogy. Picture your body as a neighborhood with two kinds of residents: firefighters and arsonists. You need both to keep balance, but if too many arsonists move in, small sparks turn into fires. High intake of refined oils is like inviting a crowd of arsonists into your system. They don't cause visible flames overnight, but over time, they keep inflammation smoldering. Replacing them with healthier fats is like strengthening your firefighting team. The good news is that the body responds quickly to changes in fat quality. Within weeks of switching to olive oil, for instance, blood tests show a reduction in inflammatory markers. Olive oil is rich in monounsaturated fat and polyphenols, compounds with antioxidant and anti-inflammatory actions. Similarly, omega-3 fatty acids from fish such as salmon or sardines help build anti-inflammatory molecules called resolvins and protectins. These not only reduce joint tenderness but also protect cartilage from further wear. Avocado oil, which is stable at moderate heat, offers a similar benefit while adding a smooth flavor that older adults often find easier to incorporate. Some patients worry that avoiding refined oils will make cooking complicated or expensive. In reality, it's quite manageable. You can use olive oil for salads and low-heat sautéing, and avocado oil, or a small amount of butter for higher heat cooking. For baking, unsweetened applesauce can replace part of the oil content, reducing calories and inflammation at once. When dining out, choose grilled over fried dishes and ask restaurants what oils they use. This simple question can change your exposure dramatically. With time, your palate adapts. Fried foods stop tasting crisp and start tasting heavy, while fresh ingredients dressed in olive oil begin to feel satisfying in a deeper, cleaner way. The connection between these dietary fats and joint comfort is not abstract. Inflammation triggered by an imbalanced fatty acid profile leads to swelling in the synovial membrane, the thin tissue that lines your joints. This swelling produces enzymes that break down cartilage and irritate nerve endings, creating that dull, persistent ache familiar to anyone with arthritis. Adjusting your fat intake helps the membrane recover, allowing smoother joint motion. Many people notice not only less pain, but also improved skin texture, clearer energy levels, and better digestion, all signs of systemic balance returning. Another point worth highlighting is the synergy between fats and antioxidants. When your diet includes plenty of colorful vegetables, herbs, and spices, think turmeric, rosemary, basil, their antioxidants neutralize the free radicals produced during fat metabolism. Together, these foods form an internal anti-inflammatory alliance. So it's not just about cutting something out, it's about building a team of nutrients that work in harmony. For anyone who grew up in a time when margarine and light oils were marketed as the healthiest option, this message can feel confusing or even contradictory. But nutritional science evolves, and the evidence is clear. Quality of fat matters far more than quantity. Reducing refined vegetable oils and increasing natural, unprocessed sources of healthy fats can make a tangible difference in how your joints feel day to day. The third food group we must talk about is one that often surprises people: processed dairy and meats. These are staples in many diets, especially for older adults who grew up believing that a glass of milk or a slice of ham every morning is essential for strength. But when these foods are industrially altered, when milk is homogenized, when cheese is made with artificial additives, when meat is preserved with nitrates and loaded with sodium, they can turn from nourishment into inflammation triggers. Let's begin with dairy. For some individuals, the proteins in cow's milk, casein and whey, can act as irritants to the immune system. They don't cause the same dramatic reactions as allergies, but they create subtle immune activation, especially in people with sensitive digestion. Over time, this low-level immune response can translate into systemic inflammation, which, for someone with arthritis, means stiffer joints and swelling that seems to have no clear cause. I've seen countless patients experience relief after switching from regular milk and cheese to alternatives like goat's milk yogurt, almond or oat milk, or simply reducing dairy intake altogether. The improvement is not only physical but also energetic. Many report lighter digestion and better sleep. Then we have processed meats, sausages, bacon, deli slices, hot dogs, the convenient items that save time but silently wear down health. These foods are high in saturated fats, preservatives, and compounds called advanced glycation end products, the same troublemakers created by sugar. When meat is cured or smoked, these substances accumulate, and once inside the body, they stimulate inflammatory pathways that worsen joint pain. Nitrates and nitrites, common preservatives, also impair vascular health, reducing blood flow to the tissues that need repair. The result? Slower healing, more stiffness, and that deep ache that refuses to fade. A simple experiment can be revealing. If someone removes processed meats and dairy for just 3 weeks, replacing them with lean proteins like fish, chicken, lentils, and small portions of eggs, the difference is often measurable, not only in how they feel but in visible signs like reduced puffiness in the hands, less knee swelling, and even better flexibility. That's not magic. That's inflammation quieting down because the immune system is no longer being provoked. Science supports this approach. Several nutritional studies have shown that diets emphasizing unprocessed, plant-forward meals, with minimal processed meats and dairy, correlate with reduced markers of inflammation, such as C-reactive protein. Mediterranean-style diets, rich in olive oil, vegetables, legumes, and fish, are consistently associated with better joint function and reduced arthritis symptoms. The message is consistent. When you move away from processed animal products and toward whole, natural foods, your joints thank you. For those who love dairy and find it hard to let go, moderation is key. Choose natural, unsweetened yogurt, ideally fermented and free of additives. Fermentation partially breaks down lactose and casein, making them easier to digest and less inflammatory. The goal is not restriction, it's awareness. The more natural and less industrial your food, the better your body can use it for healing rather than defense. I often remind people that arthritis is not only a joint disease, it's a mirror of the body's internal environment. Every meal you eat sends a chemical message. Some meals whisper calm to your immune system, others shout chaos. You are not powerless in this conversation. Every food choice is a way of telling your body how to feel tomorrow morning. By now, you understand that the foods we remove are just one side of the story. The other side, the empowering side, is what we add. Once you stop feeding inflammation, you can begin to nourish healing. The body is remarkably adaptive. It's always ready to repair, if only given the right raw materials. Think of your diet as a garden. You've pulled out the weeds, the sugars, the refined oils, the processed meats and dairy. Now it's time to plant seeds that restore balance. Start with color. The deeper and richer the color of your fruits and vegetables, the more anti-inflammatory compounds they contain. Berries, spinach, kale, broccoli, beets, and peppers provide antioxidants that neutralize free radicals responsible for tissue damage. Leafy greens in particular are packed with magnesium and vitamin K, nutrients essential for bone and joint strength. Add to that omega-3 fatty acids, the natural pain relievers your body produces from the right fats. You find them in salmon, sardines, walnuts, chia seeds, and flaxseed oil. These oils don't just soothe inflammation, they rebuild the very membranes that cushion your joints. When patients adopt omega-3 rich diets, many describe the sensation as a quieting of the body, a reduction in that deep, throbbing tension. Then comes turmeric, one of nature's most studied anti-inflammatory spices. Its active compound, curcumin, inhibits enzymes that trigger inflammation in the same pathways as some pain medications, but without the side effects. Black pepper enhances its absorption, so adding a pinch of both to soups or stir-fries turns ordinary meals into small healing rituals. Ginger works similarly, easing stiffness and improving circulation. Protein remains essential, but the type matters. Lean poultry, fish, legumes, and tofu provide amino acids without the inflammatory baggage of processed meats. Combined with whole grains like quinoa or brown rice, they form complete proteins that help your body rebuild cartilage and muscle support. Hydration also deserves attention. Joint cartilage is mostly water. When you're dehydrated, that cushioning layer thins and pain signals intensify. Aim to sip water throughout the day rather than drinking large amounts at once. Herbal teas, especially chamomile or green tea, offer antioxidants and calm the nervous system, adding another layer of support. When people follow this pattern, less processed food, more plants, balanced fats, steady hydration, the results often go beyond pain relief. Energy returns, digestion improves, sleep deepens, and mood stabilizes. Pain may have been the first symptom, but the reward is total well-being. Before we close, I want to take a step back and remind you of something essential. Arthritis is not just a condition of the joints, it's a story of the whole body. Your immune system, your gut health, your metabolism, your stress, all of it plays a part. That means your power to change is greater than you think. Let's recap the key message. The 3 foods most responsible for worsening joint pain are refined sugars and carbohydrates, refined vegetable oils, and processed dairy and meats. They all share one thing: they create inflammation and interfere with the body's ability to repair. When you remove them, or even reduce them, you begin to give your joints room to breathe. Then you replace them with the foods that heal: colorful vegetables and fruits, omega-3 fats, spices like turmeric and ginger, lean proteins, and plenty of water. You're not depriving yourself. You're giving your body exactly what it has been asking for. I've witnessed transformations that seemed impossible. People in their 60s and 70s who thought stiffness was inevitable begin walking again without grimacing. Fingers once swollen regain dexterity. Even the face softens as inflammation recedes and vitality returns. None of this requires exotic supplements or extreme diets, just consistent, mindful choices. Now, if you've made it this far into the video, it means you're serious about improving your health. So take a moment right now, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications. Every week we share science-backed guidance to help you understand your body, reduce pain naturally, and regain the freedom to live fully. By subscribing, you're not just following a channel, you're joining a community that believes aging doesn't mean suffering, and that knowledge is the first medicine. If today's message resonated with you, share it with someone you care about. So many people endure pain silently, believing nothing can be done. But as you've seen, something as simple as changing what you eat can change everything. Your body is resilient. Your joints remember what it feels like to move freely. Give them the right fuel, the right rest, and the right care, and they will respond. The road to arthritis relief doesn't start in the pharmacy. It starts in the kitchen, and that journey begins today with you.